Welcome to the Fun Astrology and Merriman Market Analyst Saturday Financial Podcast. I'm Thomas Miller. Thanks for joining us. This is the free weekly newsletter for next week, but begins on Tuesday because obviously Monday is a federal holiday. Written by financial astrologer and market analyst Ray Merriman. There's some excellent astrology in the second section here, but in this first section, a really good demonstration of what you've heard Ray mention here is a critical reversal date. That's a point where markets pivot, and this one happens to be tied to the Sun conjoining Uranus, which happened Saturday a week ago. What you're going to hear in this first section is peaked and dropped, peaked and dropped, peaked and dropped. First, a couple of articles to get us started. One that drove the market this past week, brilliantly penned by Dr. Paul Donovan of UBS. He said, the fact that policy decisions have been made quickly by people who do not always have prior government experience has introduced unintended consequences, either forcing policy reversals or causing economic disruption. They send a signal about how policy is formulated. The perception of policy professionalism might become an investor focus. Introducing unpredictability and unintended consequences removes any pretense of precision in forecasting the U.S. economy. The weightings attached to risk scenarios are thus higher than normal. That was such a diplomatic way of saying it. The yo-yo continued this week, up and down, up and down, up and down. Then there's this from Fox Business last Saturday, a quote from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He said, "It's the Biden administration and the spending that we have seen over the past 4 years," the Treasury Secretary continued. "We inherited 6.7% deficit to GDP, the highest when we weren't in a recession or a war, and we are determined to bring the spending down and grow the economy." End quote. Now, Ray's comments, he begins by saying that global stock indices took note of the May 16th to 19th two-star geocosmic critical reversal date that involved the powerful Sun-Uranus conjunction and the Mercury-Mars waning square. In Europe, the London FTSE and the Zurich SMI indices put their highest marks on May 20th since the global stock market plunge of April 7th to 9th. The Amsterdam AEX index made its post-panic high on Friday, May 16th. All three then had a rather hard decline into Friday, May 23rd, as the Sun-Uranus reversal signature suggested. The German DAX seemed like it would escape as it tested all-time highs on May 23rd, but by the end of the day, it dropped in the typical Uranus fashion, suddenly falling to its lowest level in 2 weeks. Asia and the Pacific Rim also exhibited erratic behavior. Uranus. Most notable was the decline in the Indian Nifty and the Japanese Nikkei indices, which topped out May 13th to 15th and then plunged into Thursday, May 22nd. China's Shanghai Composite also fell into a low on Friday after posting recent highs 1 week earlier. Australia's ASX and the Hang Seng of Hong Kong were relatively tame, trading near their recent highs on May 23rd. The U.S. stock indices responded right in line with the Sun-Uranus dynamic, ending their recent 6-week rallies, May 19th through 21st, falling sharply into new lows below their 15-day moving averages on Friday, May 15th. The Bovespa of Brazil made a new all-time high on May 20th before pausing into the end of last week. On the other hand, gold recovered sharply from its major cycle low of 31.23 on May 23rd, rising to a high of 33.66 on Friday, May 23rd. Silver also recovered nicely from its low of 31.76 on May 15th to a high of 33.91 on May 22nd. Bitcoin was a star again last week, soaring to a new all-time high of 111,965 on Thursday, fulfilling its first target given in our recent special report on Bitcoin. However, by Friday, it had given back over $4,000 of those gains intraday. I'll discuss a new and powerful Mercury retrograde finding related to Bitcoin in our MMA mid-year financial market update, which will take place on June 15th, and there's a link to information on that in the announcements section in the newsletter at MMAcycles.com. All in all, it looks like the May 16th to 19th two-star critical reversal date was on target from the prior week's stock market highs. The question now is whether this decline is all about to end in a normal 3 to 8 day corrective retracement with support between the 15 and 45-day moving averages, or will it continue as part of a steeper decline to the greater cycle low that will exceed the 45-day moving average? Now, some very good astrology in this week's short-term geocosmics. A quote from the Wall Street Journal from last weekend again. This is from an interview with Alicia Finley. America needs a supply-side comeback. She is quoted in that interview saying, "Every single time we've raised tax rates on the top 1% of income earners, every single time the economy has underperformed. Every single time we've raised tax rates on the top 1%, tax revenues from the top 1% of income earners go down." Arthur Laffer says in a video interview from his home in Nashville, "Every time we've cut tax rates on the rich, the economy has outperformed." Today, some Republicans have forgotten the lessons of the Laffer curve, or maybe failed to learn them in the first place. End quote. And this article from CNBC.com on Wednesday, 30-year Treasury yield tops 5% as GOP bill raises deficit concerns. Quoting, "Treasury yields moved back to levels that have pressured the economy and financial markets in the past as investors feared a new U.S. tax bill could worsen the country's budget deficit, a risk highlighted in a Moody's downgrade of the U.S. credit rating the end of last week. The 30-year Treasury bond yield broke above the key 5% level for the second time this week and is hovering near its highest point since January." End quote. Now, Ray's short-term geocosmic thoughts. The sun has now entered the sign of Gemini as of May 20th. Unlike Taurus, which is known for its stability and has been in effect since the secondary stock market lows of April 21st, the sign of Gemini is a different energy. It is not known for its association with stability or stable markets. It's a mutable, changeable air sign, which means it is quick thinking and acting, very vacillating, as it flips from one interesting and exciting idea to another. It's probably more known for its ability to multitask, taking on several projects at once, but not necessarily staying on point with any until completion. In terms of the financial markets, sharp price swings are more likely now than under the influence of Taurus. This is important in understanding what happened and what to prepare for during the next month. And it's not only the sun and Gemini that will be the leading actor-actress in this new play. The quote-unquote retrograde chaos may be over as of April 13th, when Venus was the last to turn direct, and in the even bigger picture, a round of new turbulence is now unfolding as the march of each outer planet into new signs picks up another participant this weekend when Saturn crosses into Aries. Pluto started this very rare ingress parade on November 19th, 2024, when it fully moved into Aquarius. This was followed by Neptune changing its position from Pisces into Aries on March 30th. As a side note, Neptune pertains to religion, and Aries is a new beginning. The Pope died, and a new Pope has been ushered in. This may be a game changer that no one really sees yet. The planetary procession moving ahead will find Jupiter entering Cancer on June 9th, followed by Uranus transiting from Taurus to Gemini on July 7th. That's a lot of sign and leadership changing from the largest and longest orbiting planets in our solar system. Since outer planets are more associated with the collective than the personal, their correspondence is one of the great turbulence as major reworkings on the planet get underway. Hence, this new phase of turbulence is likely to last until each of these outer planets is firmly entrenched into their new signs, which won't be until spring of 2026. This week we get yet another view of what this Aries vortex and new era will be about, as the new moon in Gemini takes place on Monday, May 26th. The actual planetary pattern surrounding this new moon in early Gemini isn't too bad. It forms a trine to Pluto and a sextile to both Saturn and Neptune in early Aries. The new moon, with Mercury, occupies the same degrees that Uranus will traverse later this year and into the next when the Aries vortex is in full force, as per our discussions in the Forecast 2025 book and webinars. Yet there are concerns as we travel beyond the range of the new moon influence and head into the full moon of June 11th. This will occur 2 days after Jupiter enters Cancer and starts its powerful square to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in early Aries, June 15th to 19th, with the Sun still in Gemini. It could get very turbulent the following 2 weeks. Financial markets could become excitable and erratic. One must keep in mind that this period will also coincide with President Trump's birthday, his elaborate celebrations planned, and is butting up to his deadline for other nations to accept his tariff dictates. This solar return might be the most consequential year of the president's life. It may define his ultimate legacy, as it coincides with the strongest cosmic aspect of the year, and it's in the heart of the Aries vortex, from spring 2025 to spring 2026, one of the most powerful celestial patterns ever. Will the United States really enter its most golden economic age ever, as he claims will happen under his watch? It's possible. I don't think we should discard that possibility on some levels. Or will he make an incredibly ill-advised decision that undermines the nation's trust in its leadership and economy? That, too, is a possibility that should not be breezily dismissed. With the Aries vortex now underway, we are in the midst of a plunge into the bottom of an abyss that started some time ago. At its best, the next few months are the reversal of that polarity and dissension, and the start of both an economic and cultural renaissance. At its worst, it is the collective realization of a great deception, which, if not checked, could lead to a great economic depression. It all depends on how the world reacts to the symbolism of Saturn combining with Neptune in Aries. Trust in the nation's leadership and the leadership's trust in the nation's citizens. It's either trust or bust. And whether it's a bust or not, I remain positive longer term. As Saturn separates from Neptune and the Aries vortex breaks up, these two planets begin to open up, waxing phase. It may take time to clearly see the light from that separation, but the waxing phases of longer-term planetary cycles are growth periods for the sectors of human experience indicated by those planets. Just as the new moon, the conjunction of the sun and the moon, occurs in the dark of the night, it takes about 2 to 3 days before the crescent of light reappears. It's the same with the synodic or conjunction cycles of all planets. And that's this week's newsletter from Ray. And if you'd like to pick up that Forecast 2025 book, it's still available. Go to hightimelinebooks.com and you'll see it right there at the top. There's a link. Seriously, if you would like to see what he talked about, the Aries vortex and this renaissance as well, what a great way to spend this holiday weekend. Pretty quick listen, about 5 hours. And you could see how much of what he talked about last fall has already come to pass, but we still have more than half the year ahead. That's at hightimelinebooks.com. We'll send you a link to go purchase it from MMA Cycles. Have a great holiday. We'll be back on Monday with a podcast. There's a sky above us, even if we're on holiday. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great weekend.